I am heavy weapons guy. Cry some more.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, have you ever thought to yourself, damn, walking sucks, and thinking is hard, but doing both at the same time? Now that is impossible. I sure wish that I could play Monster Hunter, but in a way where I never have to move and think at the same time. Have you? Well, hopefully someone somewhere has thought that, but who cares, because I made the build anyways.
Well, good luck with that.
After all these months upon months of Iceborne being released, us hunters have really just played the hell out of this game, really doing just about everything we possibly can. That means that now it's time for us to do the things that we can't, or at least, well, shouldn't. This is a build for those of us who are lazy, for those of us who like big numbers, but only paying attention for small periods of time. Today, my magical little marigolds, I present to you a little build that I like to call Valor. You know, like Braveheart, but after the Western localization came in with Generations Ultimate.
Wait a minute!
Starting off with why this build exists, followed by what the build itself actually is, and then the playstyle to adopt while using this build. As for the why, well, have you ever wanted to be a living, breathing sentry turret? A mere pawn in a tower defense game, but grown to ridiculous power levels? Well, there's no better time than the present. This build puts everything, and I mean pretty much everything, directly into the damage of Wyvernheart. You know, the minigun function of the heavy bowgun. What this unfortunately means is that it is pretty much useless when Wyvernheart is on cooldown, with the best shot during that period being normal 3 with high recoil and poor reload, which is arguably just not worth firing at all. But the Wyvernhearts? Oh, the Wyvernhearts. If you've ever just wanted to kill a monster by 1,000 cuts, but each cut is meaty, each individual cut is very deep and long, this is the way. If you've ever wanted to start the fight by just doing burst damage to the point of multiple part breaks, this is the way. You may think this build is ridiculous or it doesn't work or function, but if you want to have the beefiest Wyvernheart in the business, well,
This is the way.
and the best part of this whole thing is that the build works wonders. It is surprisingly close in damage to just proper damage meta sets, considering you only really do damage when Wyvernheart is up, but the amount of damage that Wyvernheart does here means that it pretty much evens out to regular damage over the length of a whole hunt. That, combined with making your Wyvernheart as frequent and safe as possible, lead to what can only be described as the ultimate way to turn yourself into a turret in Monster Hunter World. You know, aside from magically replacing your human body with a turret body, though I haven't seen that happen to anyone yet, so I'm pretty confident this is the best option right now.
If you say so.
But as I lightly skipped past earlier, this is also designed to be safe. In essence, this build is capable of cheesing monsters, giving you relatively very easy kills for minimal input compared to an average build, while playing in a really odd, unusual, and simply just fresh way. By which I mean, you know, not attacking for half of the hunt. As far as the equipment itself goes, we have a simply wonderful collection of items coming together to make this work properly. But to start off it, arguably the most important part of any build, the weapon, today we'll be using a heavy bowgun.
Inconceivable!
But more specifically, a Safi'jiiva bowgun, Safi's freeze cannon, as it has the best status ammo for our purposes of any Safi'jiiva heavy bowgun that also has Wyvernheart. As far as custom mods go, you'll want to get yourselves, unsurprisingly, 4 close range up mods and a Wyvernheart mod, which increases your damage even further the longer that you fire Wyvernheart without letting go of the trigger. So, you know, pretty applicable to our purposes here. For augments, you'll want yourself to attack up, and then 1 status, simply because we want the attack and the element fits while being more useful than just more defense.
The best defense is a good offense.
And then, finally, arguably the most important weapon feature, the awakening abilities, which for this bowgun we have gone with 3 attack 5s, 1 attack 6, and Lunastra Essence, which is the main piece that allows us to put together what we have here. Which is, of course, a lot more identifiable when looking at the armor itself. Even without decorations, you can tell what we are working towards here. Focus reduces the cooldown on Wyvernheart, and Tool Specialist reduces the cooldown on Rocksteady. Steady, and Health Booster. One of our main goals with this build is to have these three things come off of cooldown as close to each other as possible, and wouldn't you know it, we manage that. On top of this, you can see the Health Boost skill, which I will simply always vouch for, and Agitator for that sweet, sweet damage. Filling in the decorations, then, it becomes quite clear just how the build works as a whole, and how we've managed to essentially piece together a build that has no real business existing as a build. As a whole, the build has 6 Critical Eye for 30% affinity, 5 Agitator for a large chunk of attack and affinity when the monster is enraged, 5 Tool Specialist to speed up our tool recharge time dramatically, 3 Health Boost because it's just that good, 3 Critical Boost because of our affinity is just high enough to take advantage of this, 3 Weakness Exploit for another 50% affinity when attacking a tenderized weak point of a monster, 3 Focus to reduce the cooldown of our Wyvernheart, 3 Peak Performance for a ton of extra attack when at full health, 2 Special Ammo Boost for a massive damage boost to Wyvernheart just in general, and then the set bonus Tool Specialist Secret, which allows us to have all of our Tool Specialists in the build in the first place. But let's ask another Tool Specialist what they think of this build's skills.
Now that's a lot of damage!
Thanks, Phil. For mantles, you'll want both Rocksteady and the Health Booster instead of a second mantle, as the combination of these two tools are what really make this build truly work at the end of the day. The sort of glue that holds it all together. And in your Rocksteady, I would just put a couple of attack tools. I know it's not exciting, but attack is great, especially for this build, especially when we already have all the affinity skills you could ever ask for. So that is my recommendation for these slots. As far as the playstyle itself goes, this is where it'll all start to make sense. Your goal at all times is to get the most out of Wyvernheart. Nothing else really matters, except, well, surviving, obviously. The way that you start a hunt is slightly different than the way that you mean to continue, so let's go over that first. When you walk up to a monster, load your special ammo, Rocksteady Mantle on, tenderize whatever part is weakest to ranged ammo, which in this case is the face, Health Booster on the floor, then flint shot the monster into a wall, followed by Wyvernhearting your heart out directly into the weakened part while the monster is down. Now, during a hunt you can do the same thing, but having Wyvernheart line up there with a non-enraged monster is unfortunately not particularly reliable.
There has to be another way.
Which is the exact reason why we have all the tools of the trade of a hunter. More specifically, we have traps for non-elder dragons, which work absolute wonders with this build, and the specific gun that we choose for the job can also fire paralysis 2 ammo, so you can force a paralysis for some of your Wyvernhearts regardless of your target, though I will admit that firing that ammo is a bit non-user friendly. That being said, this is the right moment for me to reiterate that you aren't really supposed to fire at all between Wyvernhearts, so much as just run around with your weapons sheathed while dodging attacks safely. This is a heavy bowgun with no recoil and no reload mods. It is super unwieldy with regular ammo types. Not that it can't be done, but just be aware that if you choose to fire ammo that isn't Wyvernheart, it will root you to the spot pretty damn hard, which is why this build was designed from the ground up to just not need to do damage outside of Wyvernheart. This thing kills monsters in reasonable times without it.
But I wanna.
That said, you can absolutely choose to use regular ammo in between if you feel confident in your ability to avoid damage while doing so. And if you do, then my main recommendations are Poison 2, which the gun can fire, as once you apply poison it is just damage that ticks away over time while you once again are running around safely, or Normal 3, which is the highest damage regular shot that you can do with this gun. One super important note is after you finish your Wyvernheart, you need to manually remove your Rocksteady Mantle, even though it won't be finished yet. Yeah, I know it hurts. It really hurts. But this is the way that you have to do it to line up consistently with your Wyvernheart cooldown. On the bright side, you don't have to worry as much about lining up the Health Booster, at least not quite as much. The cooldown is way lower, so it will pretty much always be up when your Wyvernheart is if you're using it the way that I've lined out here. As a whole then, this build is just plain, well, simple. Once you get the hang of it, it's based around all these small windows of absolutely massive damage, dealing thousands and thousands of damage in just seconds behind the safety of Rocksteady and Health Booster, then running around with the full range of movement, weapon sheathed in between during the cooldown. It is fun if you like big bursts of damage, and it is surprisingly effective for how little time you actually spend consistently attacking the monster, and it is honestly quite a bit of fun, while being being a breath of fresh air among Monster Hunter builds. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been the Valorheart Heavy Bowgun build. Do you like this build as much as I do? What other crazy and unique builds would you like to see us try out next? Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or important news about the kingdom Animalia. Rage, Cotton, and Hollow are all here, talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros. There's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.